That was what I ended up doing after getting out of the military because I wasn't quite sure what the next step was going to be. I was going to study healthcare just because I kind of thought that might be relevant. And then it became very clear. I started getting a lot of guidance and downloads from my own guides that
Yes.
no, this you're not going to fit in anywhere. You've got to make your own path with this. And
That's right.
so I really
That's
took the
right.
plunge and have been trusting it ever since. And it continues to evolve.
Yes. Yes. I I love it. I love your story. I mean, it is, it is the story that um inspires. We are just being our normal selves, just going along, doing our things, not listening to
Mm-hmm.
source and the path that I believe, before we came into this physical body, we elected. We were like, okay, I mean, I'll try that. I'll see what it looks like. I'd really like to be
Mm-hmm.
the person that possibly I could be on the other side if I navigate and listen. And it's like, so we come in, and then we're here and we're like, yeah, not listening, not listening. And over here they're trying to get our attention, source and spirit that is working on our behalf, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
trying to get our attention. And then sometimes it takes some physical stuff for us to go, okay, or a huge trauma and some stuff that really brings us to our knees to go, okay, I'll
Mm-hmm.
listen. What would you have me do? Um and
Mm-hmm.
then when we listen, and we when we listen, we are shown, okay, maybe do this or don't do this, right? And I love that
Mm-hmm.
you also took away the things, because sometimes we're adding way too much stuff in our body, and too much input. And when you're super sensitive, then it's just, you're not able to really hear what needs to come in. If that makes sense. I feel like I'm
Yes.
speaking in a
No,
bunch of code, but
completely.
yeah.
No, it's so true.
But
It's
then
so
you,
true.
but then you were like, I'm listening, I'm receiving this information, and you're feeling better. It's that
Mm-hmm.
story of like, okay, now you're getting over these things, and you, not only are you feeling better physically, and but you are hearing and listening, and intuition is firing, and you're, working on all the cylinders there. You're like, okay, I got this now. It's really, it's flowing. And you
Yes.
also just got your master's degree in business.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you weren't able to even like put sentences together, and now you're, taking
Yes.
finals and finishing and
Yes.
doing all of that on a really high level. And so that's awesome. And
Yes.
so, and now you're putting it all into practice, right? It's like, how do we take care of our physical body and our spirituality and our spiritual energy, and and then, coaching others, helping others, and there's such a huge need for all of that. And I think the same thing that you do when you said, when we were created to work mind, body, soul all together. So our
Mm-hmm.
thoughts and our emotions and our physical body and our spiritual energy flow all together. And in between all of that is energy speaking to each other, right? I mean, we know that um, it we know that from science that it's happening. It's
Mm-hmm.
just we haven't consciously connected to that and said, oh yeah, this is my intuition speaking to me. This is a negative thought pattern I'm having that's causing this emotion that's then now causing stomach pains, and because I'm in fight or flight. It's like we're not
Yes.
making the connection all the time. So I think that the awareness is huge. If we can bring more awareness to all of
Mm-hmm.
it and have the conversations, and you know um in a class that you and I have taken similarly to each other. We were not in the same classes, but the teacher said, there is no weird and there is no crazy.
That's good.
And I was like,
Yes,
okay,
that's
cool.
perfect.
So just eliminate
That's
those
good to
words.
know.
Yeah, from describing
Hmm.
your experience. It's not weird or crazy. It's your experience.
Yeah.
And we receive that and accept that. So
Hmm.
um, now that you have, okay, you're like, this is me. This is what I do. This is how I do it. Right.
Hmm.
And there's a huge acceptance in
Yes.
your whole being when you're like, okay, I'm putting this on and this is who I am and this is what I do.
Hmm.
So um
Yes.
and then again comes that thing that we do where we're like, okay, let's identify and put into specific categories and label them, right? I
Yeah.
mean, because we can't
Hmm.
help but do it. It's part of our makeup. Um, what is intuition? What is being an empath? What is,
Hmm.
um, reading energy? You know, and
Hmm.
let's just say the word psychic. It's like even just saying the word, everybody goes, ugh,
Yeah.
what are you
Yes.
talking about? And the reason why that is, I feel like, is because past, right? History.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
in our history right now, we know that if someone had intuitive hits, if they knew something that didn't really make sense, why would you know that information? How are you good at this?
Yep.
And in the time period of the 15 and 1600s, a woman was not allowed to know specific things or be in specific whatever, what am I trying to say, occupations or
Yes.
whatever. And so for her to
Hmm.
have a specific knowledge of something definitely meant she was a witch or she was a weirdo or a
Yep.
crazy lady, and we need to get rid of her. So
Hmm.
you know, but now it's kind of like, oh, okay, that was an intuitive hit that I
Hmm.
had, and it's my intuition, or I'm reading your energy. I mean,
Hmm.
call it what you want, but what are your
Yeah.
thoughts on all that?
Yeah. Well, I love that you specifically addressed the psychic word because it is so there's so much stigma around it.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand because I grew up with the same
Yes.
understanding. But I think there's so much empowerment and understanding that it's natural, that everyone has these abilities, and it's really just the degree of sensitivity that you have to them.
Yes.
So, I have a lot of conversations with people that, even that are in this community and that are into spiritual topics and like to discuss these things. And they always want to go to this place of gifts, oh, I wish I had your gifts. I wish I had that. And I always try to explain to people that it's not really a gift. It can be if you use it in service. It becomes a gift when you use it to help others, absolutely.
Yes.
But it's not about having superpowers or anything like that. It's just about tuning in to
Yes.
yourself. And it's something we all have the ability to do because it really is a natural extension of our experience as spiritual beings, having a human experience. So
Mm-hmm.
I I do purposely use the word psychic quite often just because I want to help start breaking down
You're like,
those stereotypes and those we're going to talk about it because
I'm going to
we need
jab you a little
to,
bit.
right?
Yes.
Gosh.
Yeah. Well, and I'm like, and my approach is, um, I'm okay with us not necessarily using the word psychic as long as we use a word or a set of words that are equivalent to what the meaning is of
Mhm.
psychic abilities.
Mhm.
And I'm okay to just rename it, because, for
Mhm.
instance, when I was thinking about all of this and doing some research on this, the word God for me was very sensitive for a long time.
Mhm.
It
Yep.
meant a specific thing. It came with a set of rules and feelings that I did not like. And it didn't mean that I
Yes.
was right or wrong or someone else was right or wrong. I do not identify with God being a man with a white beard standing on a cloud telling me that he doesn't love me because I
Yep.
didn't follow a set of rules that I'm not sure I even understand all the way. And so that
Mhm.
specific word, it kind of started to cause me to not have a relationship with a higher power. And so I started using
Mhm.
other words, right? At first, it was kind of like universe or,
Yeah.
like I said, higher power. And then I really just loved the
Mhm.
word source. And because we
Mhm.
have that phrase, go straight to the source. And always also, what's the ultimate source? Well, then that would be God, right? And
Yeah.
why should somebody else be able to tell me what God looks like or is? Because my relationship with Source is very, very,
Personal.
it's personal. Yeah. So my
Mhm.
relationship with Source is very personal, and I also have to work on it, and I have to connect, and I have
Mhm.
to say, I would love to tap into source energy, this divine spirit of
Mhm.
all love and light and creation and stuff I don't understand. Please help me understand. And because I'm
Mhm.
trying to hold space for others or just even myself, and I really want to
Mhm.
have this higher knowledge, higher vibrational knowledge. And so, yes, I think
Mhm.
um, the word psychic, it causes us to go back in time. It's old energy. It's an old word. It's
Mhm.
like more of the stigma and paradigms and all the other things that go with it
Mhm.
is what I'm referring to.
Yes. No, you're so right. You're so right. And I think it's important to note that your psychic or intuitive gifts are also personal because people
Yes.
think if I can't see ghosts or if I can't see the future like other people do, then I must not have any. It's like, no, you
Yes.
have yours. You have
Yes.
your version of all of it.
Yes. I know.
So
Well,
I
like
think
when you
that's
were
an
just
important
saying,
thing to keep in mind.
it is. It's really important. When you were saying that you don't think of it as a gift. I do think of it as a gift, but I think everybody has their own, right? And I think we all
Mm-hmm.
have intuition, and I think we all have the ability to tap into that energy of, whether it's psychic, whatever, all the clairvoyancies that are out there
Yeah.
that we could go over another time. But what I see and the interpretation of what I see is coming through my lens, right? And it might be
Definitely.
totally different for you, but it's really what the message is for us. And if we're reading for someone else, like that's why I always leave it to, well, this is what I'm seeing and this is what I'm feeling and this is the way I might interpret it, but how would you interpret this for
Mm-hmm.
yourself? Because I don't know the whole story for you, and that's when I
Mm-hmm.
say, um, I only know one side of the tapestry, right? And that's the back side with all
Yes.
of the little knots and the loose strings. And I'm just telling you what I'm seeing, but you see the full picture on the other side because it's
Mm-hmm.
yours. So I
Well
get really
put.
excited about all this
Absolutely.
stuff. So that,
As you should.
yeah.
As you should. No, it is exciting, and I think that's a big part too because people are always asking me, how do I work on developing my own gifts?
Hmm.
Like, how do I
It's a
work
big
on
deal.
this? And it is a big deal, but it's also meant to be fun because so many
Hmm.
people get frustrated when they aren't immediately having visions and things like that. And interacting with spirit, interacting with your higher self is always meant to be joyful and lighthearted. And so the first thing I always recommend to people is try to be more like a kid. It's intended to be a childlike, joyful experience. using your imagination. I think that's where a lot of people kind of lose touch with their natural abilities because as kids, we're wide open. All of us
Mm-hmm.
are. And we are so in tune with our imagination. And the imagination is really like the canvas that spirit can use to kind of communicate with us and to bring things into our awareness. And then
Mm-hmm.
as we grow and we start to not use the imagination as much, but rather rely on the physical and what we see and hear with our actual physical senses, and anything else is just not real, it can be harder for us to be aware of the things we would have been aware of as a child. So I tell people to just start playing, start creating, start doing things that are just
Mm-hmm.
fun and joyful. And that starts to open us back up. So it's meant to be
Yes.
fun.
Yes. Being in nature, right? I mean, it's a huge teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you're hearing this and you think we're just crazy woo woo, well, I mean, look at sci fi, right? Like, look at all science
Mm-hmm.
fiction. I mean, somebody who wrote that and created that, that came in through imagination, but being open to what it could
Mm-hmm.
look like if it wasn't looking like this. And then once we
Yeah.
get into more science and we um, go into nature or we go into space, right? And we understand that there are creatures that look just like that out there. They're just really, on a
Mm-hmm.
microscopic level or whatever,
Yeah.
or they live underwater and so we don't see them. But, or,
Mm-hmm.
and also, just understanding, energy speaking to each other and, you know, mirror neurons and how one thing can turn into another thing, and it's just it blows my
Mm-hmm.
mind, and then I'm like, okay, see, I'm not so crazy, it's happening all the time
Yep.
all around us. So uh
Yes.
so so
Mm-hmm.
let's say you're a parent of a young child who is a highly sensitive person, and they are communicating to you that you know they're seeing things in pictures or seeing things as a movie, or trying to explain to you that maybe they have an imaginary friend, or there is
Mm-hmm.
stuff coming to them in their sleep. I mean, dreams are huge. That is definitely a state of time when
Mm-hmm.
we get a lot of impressions and messages. How do we support our young people who don't have the words or the vocabulary to articulate to us that this is happening, but we don't want to shut it down?
Mm-hmm. Great question. And honestly, this is something that I am navigating in real time, even with my own awareness. I have my own kids who are very much experiencing this. And first, I would say is just your kid best. So, what works for one might not work perfectly for another. But one of the most important things I would say is just believing them is a
Yes.
major thing, because when you come at it from a perspective of, oh, it's just your imagination, it's just you saw something on TV or whatever, that's not helping. It's really just making them start to distrust themselves or to feel shameful for bringing it up. And it's not necessarily
Yes.
going to change their experience. It's just going to make it harder for them to cope with it.
Mm-hmm.
So, depending on the age too, because if kids are really little, you don't want to affirm things that would scare them. So, for example, my kids are really young still, and they do see spirit regularly. I try to support them just by giving them tools for calming themselves and bringing their awareness to other beings that can support them. So, and this is what works for my family, it might not work for others, but we do talk a lot about guardian angels and making sure that they know that you are supported and that you have a team, you have beings around you that love you very much and that can help you to have good dreams. And if something's bothering you, you can tell it to go away, because your room is your room, and you have control of your space and your body.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to find a language that they can receive. I really don't talk about ghosts with them because that would scare them. it's
Right.
more just about like, well, this is your room, so let's make sure everyone knows that it's your room. So, and I'll do imagination exercises with them to like, let's visualize bringing in light, and do you see it? And I'll talk them through like what that looks like using our imagination, and cultivating a sense of joy, even if it's talking about a memory that we have in real life. Like, let's talk about our trip to the beach. Like, let's talk through what we felt. And because when we can do that and we raise our vibration, it can help to kind of clear away some of the things that are not of that
Yes.
vibration. So, but I do feel like it's very important to listen to them and just try to give them tools to feel empowered and not alone, rather than trying to convince them that, oh, you're not really seeing anything. That's not really
Mm-hmm.
there. So it's a balance, but
Yes.
showing up, listening to them is such a huge first step.
Yes. I agree. And I know that I've also um, encouraged young people to draw pictures. Like if you're not
Mm,
able to tell me in a way that even you understand, okay, draw a picture for me and show me what it looks like for you.
mm-hmm,
Or if you see something, you know, um, that I can see too, that represents kind of what you're
mm-hmm,
trying to show me, say, this is it. This is it. Show me
mm-hmm,
right now. So that, because it is hard to understand when someone else is experiencing something and you're not, what that looks like for them. And so, in order to
mm-hmm.
support them, maybe you just need to see it too in your own way, if that makes any sense. um
Yes.
okay, so that
Mm-hmm.
all leads me to ask the question, and I know we've talked about this before, and I think it is one of the biggest parts of intuition and reading energy and psychic abilities and all the things, is how do you turn it on, turn it off, guard yourself, have a little bit of control of it so that it is not always on, it is not taking over. What are some of the techniques that you use? What are some of the things you advise people to do?
Yeah. Well, sometimes it depends on the context, but I usually have a daily routine in the mornings. I try to rise with gratitude and just be very thankful for being awake for the day. But then if I'm not going to work, if I'm not going to actually do energy work and do healing, I just try to visualize light surrounding me and then grounding into the earth. And for me, that's important because it helps kind of create this sense of security that's not smothering, but it is protective. Like I am just
Mm-hmm.
surrounded by love and light. And so anything that I come into contact with throughout the day is not sticking with me. And
Mm-hmm.
it sounds trivial, but just doing that and having a set intention for protecting your energy and your space is very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say it's also very important to have an end of the day routine for releasing any energy that you took on throughout the day. And if you had an interaction with somebody and you know specifically that that interaction was draining in some way, you can release that person's energy from your body with love.
Mm-hmm.
You can say it out loud, just, I release so and so's energy from my body. I do a lot of cord cutting because even though we can't see it, when we have interactions with people, we tend to form energetic connections, and it's natural, it's part of our experience.
Mm-hmm.
But we can tend to our energy system and setting the intention, even if you can't see it, just gathering the cords and then cutting them for the day, front and behind, I find is very useful. So that's good. But listening to yourself too, because there are times when I'm more wide open than others. And
Mm-hmm.
when I start to feel overstimulated, I listen to
Mm-hmm.
that in myself. And that's a check for me to come back inside and acknowledge like, okay, this is a lot. I need to do better bubbling. Because I'm human, everybody is. Sometimes it's fine to just walk into Target and just go do normal things, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes I walk in and it's like, oh, I didn't I
Yes.
didn't do my bubble and this is too much. so
Yes.
so listening to yourself and not trying to dissociate from it or block it with things that are not healthy. That's a big one. People who
Yes.
are really wide open, who don't have a healthy practice of maintaining their energy system, can sometimes be over reliant on substances that
Mm-hmm.
kind of mask the symptoms of being energetically overwhelmed. So,
Yes.
smoking, doing things like that. For some people, it's food,
Mm-hmm.
especially sugar. That's a big one. People who are
Yes.
really wide open, who are not very grounded, because when we consume things that are hard on the body, it actually kind of brings us back in because it takes so much energy to digest it. So if you're
Mm-hmm.
finding yourself kind of having these cravings or doing things like that, it's usually a good sign to start checking in with yourself and doing the work. Sometimes it feels like, one more task for the day when you've got a million things going on, especially as parents or working people, but
Yes.
it's worth it. And but the intention is probably the most important part.
Yes. That's all really helpful. And I
Mm-hmm.
know that there have been times where I get caught off guard. I haven't maybe brushed off someone else's energy. I haven't, put the other guard on when someone else is, coming in, and I'm taking off
Mm-hmm.
guard. I'm, I'm kind of, I kind of get pushed over by someone else's energy
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. And I have to really remember that I can put that bubble around me, or yeah, really start to guard myself against someone else's energy. And like you said, and then washing it off before I go home, because sometimes I'll
Mm-hmm.
come home and then I'm thinking, oh, I forgot to do that. I was so busy cleaning my room or saying goodbye or doing all the things, and
Yep.
then I didn't do it. And so now here I am, really not feeling well, and it shows
Yep.
up in my physical body. And then the other practice of, if I know I'm going to go somewhere with a lot of people, like I'm going to go to a concert, I'm going to go to
Mm-hmm.
a big expo or something, and there's going to be a lot of energy going on.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I have kind of a little practice I do where, I just really put this whole bubble of light around myself and basically have to walk myself through, just leaving it on, kind of like when we
Mm-hmm.
go to pump gas and we put it on the automatic fuel thing where, it just clicks in and it just goes and I don't have to hold the handle anymore. Just kind of like,
Yeah.
okay, I need you to stay on and aware and protecting me from any light, or protecting me with light, that someone else's energy is not coming in,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not going to be on the whole time. I'm going to be enjoying myself
Yeah.
and having fun. And so we just need to
Mm-hmm.
be aware that that's a practice that we have to protect ourselves from other energy. And when you talk about cords,
Absolutely.
I think that the easiest way to explain that to people when they are unfamiliar with it is, you know, whenever we are thinking about or worrying about we're something or someone, we are giving energy to it or them. And in my
Mm-hmm.
mind, when I see it, it looks like kind of like a rope with multiple energy coming in. And sometimes it's back and forth, right? And they're intertwined
Yeah.
together,
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
plugged in to me, and it's plugged into them or that place or that thing or whatever. And sometimes it's like a messed up, unorganized closet. It's like not even, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm giving energy to this thing over here, and I need to
Yep.
retract it if it's my energy, and I need to pull
Yep.
out their energy. So I do a lot more pulling
Yes.
than cutting. And I do
Mm-hmm.
literally think of it as that cord on the vacuum. Sometimes you can just push it and it just comes back. And other times I'm like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
this is really holding on to me really hard. And I really need to like pull this out and get rid of it. So it is a
Yeah.
practice, and our minds are powerful. And We
Mhm.
need to, I always say go inward and really practice in our mind, um, con, you know, releasing
Yes.
that energy and calling our own energy back. And that is the end
Mhm.
of it when I'm doing a cleanse at the end of the day of everybody else's. Then I'm like, okay, I'm me again. I'm Brooks and this is my
Yes.
energy. And I
Yes.
call back all of my energy
Mhm.
and put
Mhm.
their energy down. Even though I know I'm going to check on you later or I'm going to, whatever. I'm like,
Yeah.
right now, I just need to be me and come back. So
Yep.
it's so much there.
So
It's
true.
just, it's like, it's a lot.
It
So,
is. It
yeah.
is. It is. And
But
I'm excited about it though because people are talking about it more and more. And it
yes.
really is intended to be a type of hygiene. You know,
Mm-hmm.
when you get covered in dirt, whatever, for the day, and it's time to shower at the end of the day, you like to shower and be clean before you go to sleep. The same is true for energy. It's
Yes.
there regardless of whether we choose to deal with it or not. The same thing if you have an accident of some sort. If you scrape your knee, you usually tend to it, clean it, whatever.
Right.
The same is true if something hurts us emotionally, hurts us energetically. You need to
Mm-hmm.
tend to those things because it adds up. So, but I do appreciate and I'm excited that this is becoming more common. People are starting to become more aware of it. And
Yes.
I think just focusing on the fact that we're worth the effort, we're worth the time, the care to show up for ourselves, focusing on that rather than it being a task. And I think it'll continue to help. Maybe we won't have as much to heal from if we can keep up our maintenance along the way.
Yes. It's part of self-care, right? Like I love
Mm-hmm.
myself enough to start looking at, like you said, not just the physical part or my thoughts for the day and the emotions, but the energy that I'm spending or coming in. So that's
Mm-hmm.
good. And yes, let's have more conversations about it. And we can talk
Mm-hmm.
more in depth about any of the subjects we talked about today, whether it's, helping our children understand. I know this is a big one. We didn't even go into being an empath, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
see it a lot with my own children, and that is, they're
Mm-hmm.
carrying around someone else's emotions or their feelings or their experience, and
Yep.
it's not their own. And I'm like, you don't need to carry
Mm-hmm.
that. It's not yours. You can let it go.
Yep.
But they're like, oh, that's a thing.
So true.
I didn't even know that's a thing. So just
Yeah.
just all of those different areas that we can talk about. And some of our
Mm-hmm.
experiences even would be wonderful to share, because I think people don't really understand what that looks like or how that works in our daily life and also our work life. So
Mm-hmm.
the differences may be
So
there.
true.
So if someone is looking to find you and they would like to set up an appointment with you, how do they do that?
Yeah. So I have a website. That's probably the easiest way to contact me. It's www.thelightremedy.com, and I have a page on there for submitting a form to connect. I have a couple of different services I offer, but that's probably the best way. Happy to work with anybody.
Awesome. That'd be really great. Yeah. Sam's amazing. And I am very grateful that you shared your story and you've done the work. You're very brave, super smart, and a delight to be
Oh,
around. So I hope that we get to do this a couple more times, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It was great. Loved it.
Awesome. All right. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.